regarded the young sailor, and her own mind would have been the last to suggest such a thought of itself. The pictures of the past and of the present, therefore, that exhibited themselves so rapidly to her active imagination, were unclouded with a shade that might affect any in whom she felt an interest; and ere she had mused, in the matter related, a quarter of an hour, the whole scene around her was filled with unalloyed satisfaction. The season and the night, to represent them truly, were of a nature to stimulate the sensations which youth, health, and happiness are wont to associate with novelty. The weather was warm, as is not always the case in that region even in summer, while the air that came off the land, in breathing currents, brought with it the coolness and fragrance of the forest. The wind was far from being fresh, though there was enough of it to drive the Scud merrily ahead, and, perhaps, to keep attention alive, in the uncertainty that more or less accompanies darkness. Jasper, however, appeared to regard it with complacency, as was apparent by what he said in a short dialogue that now occurred between him and Mabel. "At this rate, Eau douce," for so Mabel had already learned to style the young sailor, said our heroine, "we cannot be long in reaching our place of destination." "Has your father been told what that is, Mabel?" "He has told me nothing. My father is too much of a soldier, and too little used to have a family around him, to talk of such matters. Is it forbidden to say whither we are bound?" "It cannot be far, while we steer in this direction, for 60 or 70 miles will take us into the St. Lawrence, which the French might make too hot for us, and no voyage on this lake can be very long." "So says my uncle Cap. But to me, Jasper, Ontario and the ocean appear very much the same." "You have then been on the ocean, while I, who pretend to be a sailor, have never yet seen salt water. You must have a great contempt for such a mariner as myself in your heart, Mabel Dunham." "Then I have no such thing in my heart, Jasper Eau douce. What right have I, a girl without experience or knowledge, to despise any, much less one like you, who are trusted by the Major, and who command a vessel like this? I have never been on the ocean, though I have seen it; and, I repeat, I see no difference between this lake and the Atlantic." "Nor in them that sail on both? I was afraid, Mabel, your uncle had said so much against us freshwater sailors, that you had begun to look upon us as little better than pretenders." "Give yourself no uneasiness on that account, Jasper, for I know my uncle, and he says as many things against those who live ashore, when at York, as he now says against those who sail on fresh water. No, neither my father nor myself think anything of such opinions. My uncle Cap, if he spoke openly, would be found to have even a worse notion of a soldier than of a sailor who never saw the sea." "But your father, Mabel, has a better opinion of soldiers than of any one else? He wishes you to be the wife of a soldier?" "Jasper Eau douce! I the wife of a soldier! My father wishes it. Ah, why should he wish any such thing? What soldier is there in the garrison that I could marry, that he could wish me to marry?" "One may love a calling so well as to fancy it will cover 1,000 imperfections." "But one is not likely to love his own calling so well as to cause him to overlook everything else. You say my father wishes me to marry a soldier, and yet there is no soldier at Oswego that he would be likely to give me to. I am in an awkward position, for while I am not good enough to be the wife of one of the gentlemen of the garrison, I think even you will admit, Jasper, I am too good to be the wife of one of the common soldiers." As Mabel spoke thus frankly, she blushed, she knew not why, though the obscurity concealed the fact from her companion, and she laughed faintly, like one who felt that the subject, however embarrassing it might be, deserved to be treated fairly. Jasper, it would seem, viewed her position differently from herself. "It is true, Mabel," said he, "you are not what is called a lady, in the common meaning of the word." "Not in any meaning, Jasper," the generous girl eagerly interrupted. "On that head I have no vanities, I hope. Providence has made me the daughter of a sergeant, and I am content to remain in the station to which I was born." "But all do not remain in the stations in which they were born, Mabel, for some rise above them, and some fall below them. Many sergeants have become officers, even generals, and why may not sergeants' daughters become officers' ladies?" "In the case of Sergeant Dunham's daughter, I know no better reason than the fact that no officer is likely to wish to make her his wife," returned Mabel, laughing. "You may think so, but there are some in the 55th that know better. There is certainly one officer in that regiment, Mabel, who does wish to make you his wife." Quick as the flashing lightning, the rapid thoughts of Mabel Dunham glanced over the 5 or 6 subalterns of the corps, who by age and inclinations would be the most likely to form such a wish; and we should do injustice to her habits, perhaps, were we not to say that a lively sensation of pleasure rose momentarily in her bosom, at the thought of being raised above a station which, whatever might be her professions of contentment, she felt that she had been too well educated to fill with perfect satisfaction. But this emotion was as transient as it was sudden, for Mabel Dunham was a girl of too much pure and womanly feeling to view the marriage tie through anything so worldly as the mere advantages of station. The passing emotion was a thrill produced by factitious habits, while the more settled opinion which remained was the offspring of nature and principles. "I know no officer in the 55th, or any other regiment, who would be likely to do so foolish a thing, nor do I think I myself would do so foolish a thing as to marry an officer." "Foolish, Mabel!" "Yes, foolish, Jasper. You know, as well as I can know, what the world would think of such matters, and I should be sorry, very sorry, to find that my husband ever regretted that he had so far yielded to a fancy for a face or a figure, as to have married the daughter of one so much his inferior as a sergeant." "Your husband, Mabel, will not be so likely to think of the father as to think of the daughter." The girl was talking with spirit, though feeling evidently entered into her part of the discourse; but she paused for nearly a minute after Jasper had made the last observation, before she uttered another word. Then she continued, in a manner less playful, and one critically attentive might have fancied in a manner slightly melancholy. "Parent and child ought so to live as not to have two hearts, or two modes of feeling and thinking. A common interest in all things I should think as necessary to happiness in man and wife, as between the other members of the same family. Most of all, ought neither the man nor the woman to have any unusual cause for unhappiness, the world furnishing so many of itself." "Am I to understand, then, Mabel, you would refuse to marry an officer, merely because he was an officer?" "Have you a right to ask such a question, Jasper?" said Mabel, smiling. "No other right than what a strong desire to see you happy can give, which, after all, may be very little. My anxiety has been increased, from happening to know that it is your father's intention to persuade you to marry Lieutenant Muir." "My dear, dear father can entertain no notion so ridiculous, no notion so cruel." "Would it, then, be cruel to wish you the wife of a quartermaster?" "I have told you what I think on that subject, and cannot make my words stronger. Having answered you so frankly, Jasper, I have a right to ask how you know that my father thinks of any such thing." "That he has chosen a husband for you I know from his own mouth, for he has told me this much during our frequent conversations while he has been superintending the shipment of the stores; and that Mr. Muir is to offer for you I know from the officer himself, who has told me as much. By putting the two things together, I have come to the opinion mentioned." "May not my dear father, Jasper?" Mabel's face glowed like fire while she spoke, though her words escaped her slowly, and by a sort of involuntary impulse.